Hello, I'm Sian. I can't remember the last time I had sex. I blame the Rohypnol. It's my own fault, really. I met the man on the internet. Now, I know the name of the website should have given the game away. WeDrugYou.com. Anyway, that hasn't put me off internet dating. I still think it's a great way to meet men, but I'm not convinced I'm going to meet Mr. Right that way. I've been internet dating for about a year now. I've met around 30 men, and so far I've only found a few Mr. Got Some Good Points. So at the moment I'm seeing Mr. Chef, Mr. Handy, Mr. Cultured, Mr. Presentable, Mr. Funny, and Mr. Sexy. Now I know that makes 6, but a girl has to have a night off to recharge her batteries. That's only if Mr. Sexy hasn't been coming up to scratch. Now, having said all that, if I meet Mr. Disgustingly Rich, I might turn a blind eye to all his faults, as long as I can keep on seeing the chaps who fill in the gaps. Now, the very first man I met on an internet date was lovely, and he could have been Mr. Perfect. Oh, just sunk in, isn't it? But even though the first man I met was lovely, I had paid for 6 months subscription. I didn't want to waste it. Anyway, for a while I was seeing a man who was into bondage. He begged me to tie him up and tantalise him. So I handcuffed him to the headboard, and when he was lying there, naked and aroused, I took a photograph. Then I held the phone just out of his reach and said, "Shall I send this to your boss, or will you?" And then there was another one. He wanted me to treat him like a baby. So I put him in a cot. He was wearing a nappy at the time. And then I left him upstairs to cry. I went downstairs and watched Strictly Come Dancing and the X Factor. I'm not completely heartless though. After about an hour I took him up a bottle. I'm lying, I was watching Taggart. I don't like Strictly. Now, my most recent boyfriend, well, he was quite anal. Now, by that I mean, he thought there was a place for everything and everything had its place. The trouble was he thought the place for his cock was in my arse. Now, I did object at first, but then I found out that I could play Words with Friends on the iPad at the same time. Hashtag no-brainer, I think. Anyway, you probably gathered from all of this that though I'm interested in sex, I'm not desperate for it. But there is one thing I am desperate for, and that's indecent foreplay. Because if I wanted sex without foreplay, I'd still be married. Now, I'm not going to get married again because there's no point making one man miserable when you can make any number happy. Now, I'm a teacher, and when I was married, that's just something as well, is it? When I was married, my husband used to complain that I spoke to him as if he was one of my pupils. Give me back that knife and sit down. Now that's because I was working with young offenders at the time. Anyway, these days, if I meet a man that I click with, generally referred to as chemistry, I have to decide, shall I stick to the 3-date rule? And that means that on the 3rd date, you're expected to sleep with someone. Now, when I was a teenager, the furthest I'd go on a 3rd date was letting a boy try and unhook my bra. And if he did succeed, it was usually a disappointment to both of us. Now, when I hit my 20s, the 3rd date could often end in sex, so I had to choose my underwear with care. I had 3 sets of knickers, dead cert, no chance, and you never know your luck. Now, the dead cert knickers were the pretty lacy ones, the ones I wore when I thought I was going to school. And the no chance ones were the big baggy ones that the girls will know as period knickers that you wouldn't want anyone to see. And then of course there was you never know your luck, which wasn't my best, but they were quite acceptable. And sometimes I actually deliberately wore my no chance knickers to stop me having sex with someone that I knew I shouldn't, because the fear of those being exposed would ensure I kept the rest of my clothes on. And that was quite a useful contraceptive. Now this leads me on to safe sex. Now, well, we all practice safe sex, don't we? I do hope so. Now, these days if I go to bed with somebody, I'm expecting to have a sexual history. And if you didn't, I'd be quite concerned, obviously. So I have to insist on a condom, at least in the early days. Now, when I first started having sex, before all of you were born, I think, and hardly anyone wore a condom. All the girls were on the pill. We never heard of AIDS. And if you did catch a little something, it was soon cleared up by a visit to the clinic. But it's not like that now. The numbers of people getting STDs are rising. Condoms are thinner than ever before, and yet, you chaps, you still want to ride bareback.
Yeah.
I mean, never mind, I don't know where you've been. Don't you care where I've been? I'm in bed with you on the third date, for God's sake, you must be mad.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to rub her up, just pass me the vibrator and buzz off. Thank you, because then not only am I guaranteed an orgasm, I'll get some sleep afterwards. I've been Sian, thank you very much.